The rain wakes Dele up, and he notices a saber-toothed tiger in the pit with him. Dele's heart races with fear, but as he gazes at the majestic beast, he realizes that it is suffering and in need of help. So, with cautious steps, Dele approaches the agitated saber-tooth and frees it. Surprisingly, the animal doesn't attack. Instead, it sniffs him curiously before bounding out of the hole to freedom. Dele climbs out of the pit and reunites with Tik-Tik, who is already feeling better. They arrive at a small village that also was attacked by the riders. As soon as they find food, they begin to desperately eat, only to suddenly be surrounded by the armed tribe that lives here. Just when all seems lost, the same saber-tooth that Dele freed earlier emerges from the shadows, baring its sharp teeth and roaring ferociously at the intruders. Everyone freezes in fear, but to Dele's amazement, the massive animal approaches him calmly, showing no hostility. As the tribe looks on in disbelief, Dele realizes that his act of kindness has earned him a powerful ally. Once the saber-tooth leaves, the foreign tribe finally lower their weapons and greet the two in peace. The leader of the Nakudu tribe begins to speak their language. He reveals that Dele's father had passed through the town but was taken by the four-legged demons. Following this, Nakudu leads them to a nearby cave, which is adorned with ancient paintings. The paintings tell the prophecy of a savior, a man who can communicate with the saber-toothed tiger. Now it has become clear that the man is none other than Dele. So Nakudu immediately sends a messenger to the other tribes. He wants to prepare for an all-out war against the demons, but Dele is not so sure if he can lead them. The next morning, the messenger comes back informing them the other tribes were attacked by the riders as well. However, the ones remaining have agreed to fight for their freedom. As everyone says goodbye to their families, Dele notices Nakudu is alone, and Nakudu explains the riders killed his wife and stole his son Tudu. Speaking of Tudu, he meets Barku while they're being dragged around by the riders, and they quickly become friends. Dele teams up with other tribes who have come together to vanquish the evil demons once and for all. After a grueling journey, the army makes it to a river where they find numerous boats filled with slaves, including Avranzet, Karen, and Barku. This gives them a purpose in their mission, especially Dele, who is now more motivated than ever. As the army cannot follow the boats through the river, Dele decides to guide them through the desert. Unfortunately, the plan turns out to be a fatal one, as after several days of walking, they find out that they have lost their way. The condition becomes so severe that many of them start collapsing due to dehydration. However, the army still doesn't give up and keeps pushing with all their might. Their hard work eventually pays off when they discover an advanced civilization, a place known as the Mountain of the Gods. The slaves already arrived a few days ago and have been put to work to build a pyramid for an advanced civilization. These men have also slaved mammoths, treating them with a lack of disrespect that angers Barku and Karen. Whenever a horn can be heard, everyone must fall to their knees to receive a leader known as the Almighty and his priests. The same night, Dele and Nakudu stealthily make their way into the slave cages. The plan is to rally their fellow captives and form a rebellion against their oppressors. Nakudu is overjoyed to reunite with his long-lost son, but Dele's heart sinks when he discovers that Avranzet is being held in a separate building. Then Dele apologizes to Karen for getting him caught, but Karen is a believer in the prophecy and swears to follow Dele to the end. A slave from another tribe protests Dele's presence here because he'll get everyone in trouble, and he doesn't care how many spears he has since weapons can kill a god. Nakudu tells him that Dele has powers that allow him to speak to the tigers, and the slaves immediately introduce him to a blind man that they keep hidden underground. This blind man used to be servant to a god that ran away and knows that what the god fears the most is the mark of the hunter, which represents the brightest star of the heavens. If Dele doesn't have the mark, he can't kill the Almighty. At that moment, they hear the guards approaching, so Dele and Nakudu need to leave. First though, Dele asks the blind man about his bracelet, which looks familiar. It turns out his father had been the one to save the blind man's life, but sadly he's now dead. Then Nakudu and Dele run back to their army, only to discover a few guards have followed them. The tribesmen get ready to fight, But Tik-Tik shows up first and fights them alone. He takes all of them down with masterful skill, but one of the guards only pretends to be dead and stabs Tik-Tik when he turns around. Dallaire rushes to Tik-Tik's side, telling him he needs him because the slaves won't fight with him since they have their own prophecy. Tik-Tik reminds him prophecies have many faces, then he hands Dallaire the white spear before dying. In the meantime, Evelet is taken to Warlord's chambers so he can take advantage of Hurt Knight. Evelet carefully steals his sword, but before she can defend herself, they're interrupted by the priests and the guards, who immediately arrest Warlord for stealing a slave from the Almighty. Then the priests take the sword from Evelet's hand and discover the scars form the mark of the hunter. The priests inform this to the Almighty, who gets furious at the news. Meanwhile, Dallaire finally gets over Tik-Tik's death and accepts the white spear given to him. He then steps up and decides to form a rebellion with the remaining tribe members and makes his way towards the city. The next morning, the tribe members blend in with the slave workers and prepare to attack the guards. Dallaire also reunites with Karen, and the two get ready for their first stage of plan, which is to release the mammoths. And as soon as they do so, havoc ensues. This serves as the perfect distraction for the rebels, and they finally cause an uproar. Many guards are killed brutally, but some rebels also lose their lives, including Karen. Just then, the Almighty comes out of hiding and threatens to kill Evelet if they do not abandon their rebellion. Left with no choice, Dallaire feigns acceptance, but then abruptly hurls his white spear towards the Almighty, killing him and breaking his illusion of brotherhood. Everyone is shocked to see him fall, and thus, all the slaves join in on the fight. Nukadu also joins in on the action and kills One Eye by impaling him with a deadly spear. Meanwhile, the warlord tries escaping with Evelet on his horse, but she cheekily stabs him, causing them to fall to the ground. Evelet and Dallaire unhurt each other, but before they can reunite, Warlord shoots his bow and hits Evelet. This is felt by the old mother, who immediately begins bleeding. A furious Dallaire runs to Warlord and kills him with a white spear. People around him begin celebrating their victory, but Dallaire only has sad eyes from Evelet, who dies in his arms. Devastated, Dallaire runs to the mammoths to ask for a merciful end of things for himself, but at that moment, the old mother gives her last breath. As she dies, Evelet comes back to life, and the tribesmen can celebrate for real this time. Some time later, the tribes return to their corresponding villages. Nakudu gives Dallaire some seeds his father had collected, which should help feed his people. Both tribes say goodbye forever, since that's the last time they see each other. A few days later, Dallaire and the rescued tribesmen return to their tribe and plant the seeds, which begin growing pretty quickly. With Dallaire as the new leader and enough food to save the village, Old Mother's prophecy has finally been fulfilled.